Welcome back. We're very happy to have you together. We're back kind of on schedule. We've been doing these later and later. But I'm the only one here, and all of a sudden I'm like more efficient. It's like I was dreading it, and I'm like, oh, I kind of like it. And I can play my music as loud as I want. There's no other priest in the house. So there you go. No, it's just a joke. It's kind of true, but it's a joke. We're continuing with the sixth Sunday of Easter. And Teresa is going to read from John's Gospel.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father loves me, so I also love you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be complete. This is my commandment. Love one another as I love you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I have called you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. This I command you, love one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So this reading, actually both parts of it are used, are recommended readings for the marriage liturgy, and they're some of the more frequent ones that we do. And when we have weddings, I'm always trying to remind them that he was not talking about marriage when he said this. And then today I'm talking about how it's used for marriage. And the interesting thing here is that when we talk about Eucharist, or when we talk about Mass for that matter, there's a wedding happening. There's a marriage taking place. The marriage of Christ to his church, the marriage of heaven and earth. These are both ways of saying the same wonderful thing. In fact, the reason that marriage is a sacrament is because the Eucharist is a wedding. And that's an old theological concept that comes down to us. And every once in a while you'll hear somebody say, marriage, why is that a sacrament, blah, blah, blah. And it's just awful when I hear that, because it is a sacrament. It's a clear and wonderful symbol for all of us to understand how God relates to us. He has married heaven and earth. In our church buildings, in our spaces, when they're adorned and fixed up properly, they come together to look at the dome of the sky, and then the floor and the wood and stone and everything of earth, and they've come together in this building. So we have this great imagery that we use to talk about how we're wedded together with Jesus Christ, in Jesus Christ. It's a much more pronounced part of the theology of the Byzantine church, churches, and Roman Church has it in it, and it mentions it expressly in the Exultet on the Easter Vigil, but that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head where it's mentioned at a Mass that's not a wedding Mass itself. But it's important for us to keep that in the back of our mind. When you are coming to Mass, and when you're going to Mass, when you're at Mass, when you're celebrating Mass, you are at a wedding. You are at a ceremony. We use, and Jesus himself uses that in the parables. He goes the wedding feast. The kings, you were invited to the king's son, and go out and find people who will come to the wedding feast. You're invited to a wedding. So it's important to keep that in mind. But the reading itself objectively really tells us almost everything we need to know. These chapters in John's Gospel are very rich, very love-directed. I once heard a seminarian say, oh, I don't know if I like it. It talks too much about love. You're talking about John's Gospel. And I was like, okay, well, we can't ignore that aspect of it, and why would we want to? But some people get very uncomfortable with this over love, and they kind of downgrade it and say, well, it doesn't mean warm and fuzzy, it doesn't mean this, it means everything that love is. Love is, and that kind of love that he calls us to is unconditional love. That we look at people who are even our enemies and say, I will love them because God commanded it, because it's the right thing to do, because it will help heal the rift between enemy and me and my enemies. If I persist in my anger towards my enemies, what I can claim an earthly virtue. You know how it is when you hear about people arguing, well, if she ever said that to me, I would say this. If they ever did this to me, I would do this. If someone doesn't do... We understand conventional wisdom and popular, the proverbial they out there, they say you don't have to forgive a person in this situation. Is very different from what Jesus Christ calls us to and tells us to do here, which is love. We have no exception in Jesus Christ to the commandment, for the commandment to love. There's no except or but or you don't have to in this case. No. And the frustrating part of when we talk about Christianity being countercultural or things like that, that's what they mean, is the world will tell you things like you don't have to love. You don't have to, and then they'll say things like, God said love, he didn't say like, and I understand some wisdom in that, but it also leads me into judgment. It leads me to say, well, I don't like this. I don't like this person because they do this, and this. Whereas if you go back and to the commandment love, then some of those things you say when you say you don't like them, you wouldn't be able to say because you're judging that person harshly. So we have to be careful about that. We have to be careful about cleverly falling into excusing ourselves from the commandment to love. There isn't any. There is no exception. No exception. So people, we can say the church doesn't believe in this, and this. And then at the end of the day, the church cannot tell you not to love them, though. They cannot tell you that they are not worthy of love or exist outside of the realm of the possibility of salvation. They can't teach that because it's not true. And we know in Jesus Christ that all, as St. Paul says, all creation is waiting for the day of redemption. So keep that in mind. It's something that's very hard for us, but it's something that's very wonderful to be reminded of. It is so easy for us to fall into everything would be fine if everybody just did it the way I did it, or getting into a good healthy practice for you, and then saying everybody should do this. It's the right way. We fall into that kind of stuff where we start believing by our own power that we are saved, and that's heretical. But it's also common, and we have to remember that our salvation comes through the saving action of Jesus Christ, and that he invited us to. So the wedding feast that he has invited to, our participation in that is what gives us our life. So take that with you this week. The weather is warming up finally. It got warm like in February or something for like a week, or the first day of March or something like that, and then it got cold until yesterday, and so hopefully we're coming into a nice springtime wherever you are, and I hope that all is well wherever you are. You survived the draft. You know, the Bills, of course, look like they're gonna dominate again, so we're all very excited about that, except Amy, who likes the Ravens. How'd they do?
I didn't even watch.
Oh, well, there you go. I didn't watch, but I checked the list anyway. So wherever you are, be happy, and we'll see you again next week.